Holy F, Dave, no weapons at the table!
What do you mean, man? I'm just getting into my character. I want to play the ultimate archer.
Well, put down that bow before somebody winds up dead.
Fine, let's just do the ultimate archer character build guide. We're going to build a regular Deadshot with this one. Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and as usual, I'm joined by this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Never miss the mark when it comes to finding that D&D content in your YouTube feed by hitting that subscribe button.
And if it's Nerdarchy videos you're after, you want to make that notification bell your bullseye.
Hey, as usual, when we do character build guides, you can jump down to the description, and you're going to be able to find two things there that may be of interest to you. And one is that character build guide over on the DMs Guild. You can go over there, download it, pay what you want. Nothing or $1 million, pay what you want. And that gives the level progressions as well as the special NPC that we make up at the end as well. Also, you can find the character sheet as we build this character that is based off of D&D Beyond's character sheet. So, you'll be able to open that up, look and see what the final character looks like and all the stuff you get and the whatnot. But it's only fair that we take a moment to thank our sponsor, D&D Beyond, that makes shooting all these videos and researching the information so much easier with a digital database of all things Dungeons & Dragons when it comes to the official content, making your characters, building your encounters, running your encounters. All of that is so much easier now that thanks to D&D Beyond.
You can even roll your dice right there digitally on your character sheet, compiling all the modifiers for you. It is super great, super helpful in a lot of ways, but that's not all. There is the videos, there is the articles, there's all the content from the SRD that is just totally free that you can go check out. It is a great resource, a great tool, as Dave says. I could not imagine, running and playing D&D without having the great resource of D&D Beyond.
Yeah, so we are now going to do a character build guide for our, archer character. Like we did a video a while back, and it was kind of a character build, but we didn't go through the steps and give you the progressions. So some people have requested it, so we're going back and doing some of those. And also, they don't always turn out quite the same way we did them the first time because things in the game change since the last time we did the video. And also, we have those extra resources for you to kind of follow along with now. So let's jump into it, Ted.
All right, so for this character, we're looking at, as opposed to making a Zen archer, we're talking about the Deadshot. The guy that goes first, gets that kill before you even realize that they're there. So that's the aspect that we're kind of, looking at. When you're going to make an archer, there's definitely things you have to look at, the race, the class, the background, and any kind of feats that are going to stand out as necessary for making that kind of character. So when we're looking at race, what are we looking at here first, Dave?
Well, we have several race options. Before we even jump into that, I think it's worth mentioning, like, we're building kind of, like you said, that Deadshot character, that ultimate archer, the character that is the best at archery. And, so we're going to look for a couple things for this archer to do. One, when we hit with an arrow, we want it to do a lot of damage. And two, we just want to be able to shoot a lot of arrows. Going first is kind of cool, and that fits into some other things that we're going to talk about later in the build. But now, we're going to have to look at our class, our race, class, and background options. And for race, we found 3 races that work out pretty well. Elf, Goblin, and Human are all great choices.
The elf is going to give you proficiency with short bow and long bow. The human is going to give us access right at first level to a feat if we go with our variant. And if we go with Goblin, they've got Fury of the Small, being able to tack on some extra damage. It adds up over the course of the character's career, how much extra that they're putting into it. So we thought that was, a great addition as a possibility for our race options.
What, with the Goblin, though, Nimble Escape is even better than Fury of the Small, because what it does for you is it makes you really mobile on the battlefield, being able to hide in order to snipe as a bonus action or disengage so you can get away from those pesky melee fighters, or I should say melee fighters, is super useful. So yeah, any 3 of those races would make a great selection. There's a bunch of other races you could choose as well, but we like these 3. Next, class options. All of these classes are usable for making a character build that's an archer. You can do Artificer, Bard, Fighter, Ranger, Monk, and Rogue. All of them have ways of doing it. The Artificer, you're probably going to go with, Battlesmith, and Monk would be the kensei. But any of them could make a serviceable archer.
So, like, when we look at these, we look at, all of the different aspects that are going to apply to those ranged combat roles. There's a lot of options that, we look at. And since we already talked about a Zen archer, I think we're pushing monk off the table, having done a monk build with this. So, what are we looking at next?
So, next up, we have our background options, right? Again, there's a bunch of choices you could go, but thematically, we took a look at athlete, entertainer, outlander, and soldier.
So soldier makes a lot of sense. You're already used to using weapons, and you've got. Hey, look, there are archers within the soldiery. With Outlander, you're already used to going out and hunting. So again, more ranged combat options. If you go with Entertainer, this is definitely more of the, hey, I do trick shots and I do fun things with a bow to entertain people. So definitely options there.
And then there's also the athlete, and we think of like the Olympian style archers, so that would also work really well as well.
Yeah, I see the athlete as a very physical type character, and I think that very much fits into the theme and the idea of what we're looking at.
Before we jump into the actual build itself and what selections we're making, we're going to start with our stats, right? And we're going to go with a point buy on this one. And our physical stats are going to be strength 10, dex 14, and a con of 13.
We're going to have a 10 intelligence, a 15 wisdom, and a 10 charisma. So I think, with this stat setup, I think you're already beginning to see, what potential race and classes that are going to be lining up for us.
So first up, we're going to select our race. And with this, we're going to go with Wood Elf. Wood Elves are just really good for archers because they get that bonus to dexterity. They get a bonus to wisdom, which being able to perceive and not having the enemies get the drop on you is super useful. They're going to get dark vision, elven weapon training, which actually gives them proficiency in said bow, which is super useful if you happen to be an archer. They're also going to get access to a higher speed starting at first level 35, so it makes them a little bit more mobile. And we also are going to get Mask of the Wild, which gives them the ability to hide in light obscurement when they're in natural surroundings. So if you want to build like a sniper type character, this is going to be super useful. As an elf, you're going to get perception. We already mentioned that could be a useful skill for an archer to have. They're also usually considered eagle-eyed as well. And, Fey ancestry and trance, not really going to matter for us being an archer, but that's just what we get.
For our background, we're going to actually select athlete. This is going to give us athletics and acrobatics. It's going to give us vehicles, land, and a language of our choice. And we saw this as a very, competitive type character. And who tends to excel at ranged combat in competitions and things? To us, beyond elves, that stood out as halflings, skipping rocks and what have you. So we felt in a more of a competition-esque style that halfling fit for a language choice for this background.
So next up, we're going to kind of start things off with our class selection. And we kind of went with one shot, one kill. Is kind of the motto. We're going to start with Rogue, and for our skills, we're going to take Stealth, Performance, Insight, and Sleight of Hand, which we feel like this character is more of a performer and entertainer, almost like, a modern-day athlete.
So, this would be, you could perform, these aspects, for fun, and it would also give you a little bit of cover for when you actually have to go out and kill things, purposefully. So it winds up being good both on and off the battlefield, having, this performance.
Yeah, and
skill.
not only that, we're going to get expertise in 2 skills. We went stealth and perception. So, if we're going to be an archer and we want to snipe things, that's going to help us out. And then we're also going to get access to Thieves Cant. Doesn't matter for being an archer. Sneak attack does, because we're going to hit things harder if we have an ally within 5 feet of them, or we have advantage on our attack roll.
And since we can, hide in, natural surroundings pretty easily with that Wood Elf ability, we're going to be able to, get advantage and offer that sneak attack that much easier.
So our next 5 levels are going to be in fighter, because again, we want to be really good at shooting arrows. We want to do a lot of damage when we hit with them, and we want to shoot as many as possible. And the very first thing we're going to get from taking fighter is going to be a fighting style. Obviously, we're going archery, getting second wind as well, not bad. Second level, we get one of the best abilities in the game,
Action surge. It's super helpful. This is going to allow us to be able to put more arrows into our enemies, in a shortened period of time. So we're only 3rd level, and we've technically, got the ability to unload some arrows pretty quickly.
For our next level, 3rd level, we're going to take an archetype Battlemaster. We want that because we want those maneuver dice so we can, do extra dice of damage every time we hit. Super useful. And also, if you want to get those trick shots in, it's a great way to go. So we're also going to get Suit of War, which just means we get a tool set. We went with Woodcarvers tools because there is no Boyer Fletcher tools.
This is going to allow us to fix or make bows. It's going to allow us to make our arrows. So very useful there. We went with a selection of maneuvers that are going to keep enemies away from us, and give us the ability to actually drop some more damage dice on the table at the same time.
Menacing, pushing, and trip all basically are battlefield control. They're all going to either keep them from coming at us, push them back, or make them use their movement to stand up in addition to that damage. Super useful for what we're going for. Another level in fighter will give us our first ASI. What do you think we should take there, Ted?
So we really don't have a lot going on for, trading in attacks for damage or anything that really is benefiting us by going first. So I think we're going to bump up our dexterity by 2, giving us an 18.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go for now. Later on, maybe some other options will appear that'll be a little bit better, but for now, that's good.
So we're now 6th level. We're gonna take us to Fighter 5. And this is obviously in Rogue One. This is going to give us our extra attack feature that we're looking for. We're only a level behind any other, pure martial classes. So it's not too much of a trade-off that we've been able to, get in the sneak attack damage. But now I think after, this final trade-off, I think it's time to, look at some other classes.
Yeah, so we're going to start in a totally different direction and take our first level in Ranger.
So with Ranger, we've got the ability to get a favorite enemy and a natural explorer terrain. Our favorite enemy, we're going to take Monstrosities. We know that there are a lot of big mean nasties out in the world, so why not select them? For natural explorer, I think the most fitting for us is going to be Forest. And then we're also going to get a language that's attributed to our favorite enemy, and there wasn't a whole lot of selection there, so we went with Minotaur. That fits a very, Theros theme, if you wanted to go with that, and since that's where Athlete came from, this is very fitting with, with Theros.
We're also going to get another skill, and we're going to take Survival. So at this point, we kind of have the storyline of this character where they are a competitive archer, but now they're kind of transitioning into like big game hunting. Big game being Monstrosities.
So it's a long wait, but we're now going to go back to Rogue to get our cunning action. This is super helpful with all the different things that you can do with your bonus action. And it's a great ability, a great asset for this particular.
Yeah, if you're talking about an archer that wants to snipe or possibly disentangle themselves from a melee combat, and there's nothing better in the game than cunning action. A matter of fact, if it wasn't for that, we decided to throw some rogue in on this. We probably would have went goblin just for those reasons. But their best ability becomes redundant.
All right, so 9th level character, we're going to take another level in Ranger. This is going to give us access to our spell casting. Super helpful because now we can use Hunter's Mark, adding another die of damage into our attacks. And we're also going to get a new fighting style. And there's not a whole lot for archery. So we're actually just going to take defensive, adding another +1 bonus to our armor class, as long as we're wearing armor. And, leather and studded leather count, so ching!
So at this point, we're getting those Ranger spells, which you can kind of reflavor as trick arrows. And there's things like Snaring Strike and Hail of Thorns that just give you some more options when you're not using your Hunter's Mark. But, most of the time you're probably just going to use Hunter's Mark over and over again, but hey, maybe there's some other thing you want to happen on the battlefield. So from Ranger, we're now at a 10th level character. We're going to take Rogue, and that's going to give us an archetype.
So for this one, we're actually going to choose Assassin. I know the name sounds super evil and, I kill the people. But really, we're taking the skill set and we're applying it to that concept of, I've got precise aim with my arrows. And while you could technically try to, flavor that with your, perform and, hitting the bullseye wherever you want, we also did talk about going out and killing big, nasty things. So getting that Assassinate ability of, going first gets you advantage, or going before the enemy gets you advantage, as well as, if you manage to surprise, being able to turn your first round hits into crits gets to be super helpful. If we're putting on our sneak attack, our Hunter's Mark, our Battlemaster dice, all of this, gets to get in there and do some serious extra damage when you begin adding that in.
Yeah, basically, if you can get that Assassinate ability off and you have all your other things going, it's literally like you're launching a fireball at one person.
So from here, we're actually going to go back to Ranger. We haven't selected a subclass here. So what are we choosing,
So
Dave?
we're going to go with Gloomstalker. That's going to give us Dread Ambusher. That's going to give us extra movement in the first round. We're already a little bit faster than most races, which is going to be helpful. It's going to give us an additional attack in the first round. And we're going to also do an additional die 8 in the first round. And remember, if we manage to get that surprise condition, we now have sneak attack dice, Hunter's Mark dice, Battlemaster dice, and now this Dread Ambusher dice. We are rolling tons of dice. And, that's not even all we're going to get. We're going to get Umbral Sight, which increases our dark vision, so we're going to be even more effective at night and then in dark. And we're going to also get some more spells, so we're going to look at more of those spells we had mentioned earlier in order to, make those trick arrows.
All right, so from here, we're going to go back to Fighter, and this is going to give us another ASI. And for this one, since we've begun building up this pool of, being able to roll a lot of damage dice, getting, the possibility of getting advantage, now it's time to look at our heritage and look at that Elven Accuracy feat, because we can turn regular advantage into super advantage, giving us, an extra d20 on our rolls to possibly get out that extra crit. So that's going to be super helpful, super thematic for this. I hit things and kill them.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to stack really nicely with these other abilities we've kind of lined up between the Assassinate feature and the Gloomstalker feature. It's really great. So from Fighter, we're going to go to Rogue, and that's going to give us another ASI. We're going to take a feat. We're going to take Sharpshooter. Now we're at the point where we can afford to trade some of our accuracy for even more damage.
With having that advantage, or super advantage as the case may be, having, the ability to surprise. I mean, we're already talking about having expertise in stealth and a really high dexterity score. Super helpful. All right, so we're not through yet. We're going to go to Ranger and grab another ASI. And for this one, we're doubling down on that concept of we really want to go first. So we're actually going to take Alert. That's going to give us a whopping +5 bonus to our initiative score, really allowing us to be able to get that advantage of going before the enemy.
It also does another thing for us. We can no longer be surprised. So before, even with a high initiative, you can still be surprised and not go first. Well, you're never surprised, so you always get the initiative roll off against your enemy. So that just compounds and increases your chance of getting Assassinate off. So you can get advantage on those attack rolls, which triggers our Elven Accuracy. So it all ties in really nicely. So after that level, we're going to take a level in Fighter. We're going to get another maneuver, Goading Attack. So now we're going to get, control on the battlefield.
So we're going to stay with Fighter for another level. This is going to grab us another ASI. With this one, we're going to put that into a +2 of dexterity. That's going to max out our dex at 20. So this is giving us a huge bonus to our initiative. It's a whopping 13 at the moment. 5 from our dex, 5 from the feat, 3 from our wisdom score from Gloomstalker. Man, this is just, super crazy, super quick moving character.
So we are now a 16th level character. We're just going to take the rest of them in fighter. And what we're going to get from that is we're going to get our improved combat superiority. So now that's a die 10. We're going to get another maneuver, Distracting Strike. Our extra attack is up to 3 now. So we're getting 3 attacks around just normally. And we're going to cap it off with our final ASI.
And this is going to go to wisdom, giving us another bonus to our initiative score. So this actually puts us up to an 18 wisdom, a plus 14 to initiative. That's going to give us a passive perception of 26. We're really aware of our surroundings. We know what's going on with that, with that alert. So we're not surprised. Maybe this character has seen some stuff over the course of their adventure, and maybe they're a little paranoid. Maybe they just are like, all right, if I don't know what to do, I just fire. I've got an arrow, knocked and slightly drawn, and if I see things moving, I just shoot. Maybe not, but that's just a fun aspect that you could do with this kind of character. All right, so we've made this amazing character. There's definitely a lot of fun things. There's some attributes to a character that I played, in a previous campaign that was a lot of fun. But from here, we tend to talk about how we would use this kind of character for, the person sitting behind the screen. How does a DM?
All right, so I have an idea in my head. And I love the idea of this character. Super competitive. They started off just like how we explained as an athlete and an archer. And then they moved into big game hunting. And I'm like totally getting some like Craving the Hunter vibes where like maybe the players accidentally steal a kill from this NPC. And it starts a lifelong grudge, right? Mm-hmm. So like they like slowly begin hunting other NPCs that are friends and family and loved ones of the players. They kind of like, they show up to like try and foil them at parts, but I don't think like they're going to come at them head on right away. Like they might spend like days or weeks in the wilderness just trying to track them and mess with them.
That would be awesome, using survival to make some traps and just to harass them. Not to really do any, long-lasting damage unless, the opportunity arises. But, like, you could definitely have a lot of fun having this character, moving around, expertise in stealth. With that particular character, with the stat modifiers that they have, that's going to be really difficult for them to find and track. With this character, I could definitely see them, just lying in wait, being super patient, with that high wisdom score that to me, could be attributed to being patient. They're not going to be very personable. They're not very intelligent, with a 10 intelligence and 10 charisma, but, they're going to be, strong in the ways of, the wilderness, strong in the ways of archery. So you could definitely have a lot of fun and a lot of challenging
also, this might be cool to kind of overlay one of the, monstrous humanoids template, and like they're the champion and defender of their people. And like they're kind of sent out as a counter strike against the players who have been trying to take down, the orc horde or gnolls or whatever the monstrous race is. And the countermeasure that they release is this character, this creature, and it begins hunting them down. It's kind of the same premise as the other one, only way more malicious. Or maybe it's the players encroaching in the territory of these humanoids, and kind of maybe the players are wrong.
What if you use this guy who, throughout these options or others, like that they're leading false trails and, sending them the wrong direction. If the players wind up, tracking someone, or they think they're tracking this person, and out of nowhere, it doubles, this character doubles back, and puts extra footprints, so that it's like, okay, I'm going to drop down from the trees, walk alongside this person. It's like, maybe you give the proficiency in Arcana, and you put some stuff on the ground to make it look like magic was used. You could definitely go in a lot of different directions of how, with just messing around with survival and traps, of really, tricking the players into thinking that, they've
Now,
got the correct
I don't
information,
recommend you
but
do
they
this
don't.
all the time, but you could use this character to kind of highlight to your players sometimes the things that they do that are annoying to you as the GM. Like, you're going to have access to Pass Without Trace, and we built a character that's kind of really good at stealth to begin with, so they are going to be virtually invisible to them, and they will not be able to be tracked, without using magical means is one thing. That super high initiative where they're always going first is another. The inability to be surprised by your players, that super high perception where your players are never going to get the drop on them. So you've got like all these things going on that I've seen done to DMs by players. Well, now as the DM, you can get a little bit of revenge.
So, you really have to heavily preface that with, don't just be a jerk to the players, because this kind of character, absolutely, if you've got enough damage, you get the crit off, you could totally drop a player or drop a PC. I don't recommend you killing your fellow players at the table. You drop a player character and then just disappear back into the wilderness, with that high stealth ability. The players might not be able to get them. And okay, you wait around, boom, they fire another arrow. Surprise, it's a critical. They drop somebody else. Like, you just keep unloading into them with this hit and run tactic. Even if you aren't dropping them every time with a crit, you've got the ability to potentially do a serious amount of damage and disappear, with that move and hide at the same time. Yeah, the players might get, wind of this soon and be like, all right, I'm going to ready an action. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And, that's, one thing a DM can do to educate players to be prepared. I know Dave has done some of this hit and run stuff to us in the past, and it can really be painful. It can hurt. But, when you've got this kind of character, you as the DM might see all of the different avenues that you can do, but you have to make sure that you are playing this NPC to its stats. And a 10 charisma, this guy's going to be a jerk throughout, or not necessarily, doesn't have to be a jerk, but is not personable, with that 10 charisma. With that 10 intelligence, they're not going to be thinking about overly complicated strategies. They're average. So like you gotta work with that. So don't, turn this into the super cunning, I kill you every step of the way, scenario.
So those are just some ideas for you to check out. But if you enjoyed this character build guide, you can check out the video that inspired it, Deadliest Archer Builds for 5e D&D. It's up here somewhere.
If you're looking for more 5e content, did you know that over on Patreon, we're making new products for 5th edition D&D for DMs and players alike every month?
But that's not all. We do weekly patron-only live chats, monthly giveaways that our patrons are automatically entered in, and more.
So until next time, stay nerdy.